It was one of those summer barbecues where everyone in the neighborhood somehow ends up in your backyard, drinking, laughing, and pretending to care about each other's lives. I was manning the grill, flipping burgers, trying to enjoy the warmth of the sun and the sound of children running around. Laura, my wife, was charming as always, circulating among the guests, laughing, her glass of wine constantly half full. Then it happened. She leaned over to a group of friends, her laughter carrying across the yard, and said jokingly, or so she claimed, "Who wants to trade my husband?" I froze mid-flip, the spatula heavy in my hand. A joke, I told myself. It had to be a joke. But the way the words lingered like a knife suspended in air made my chest tighten. Everyone chuckled politely, some rolling their eyes, others shaking their heads. But then came the answer I wasn't prepared for. I barely recognized the voice at first, warm, casual, yet cutting. The neighbor, Greg. "I'll take him," he said with a grin like it was the funniest thing in the world. The laughter around us stopped. A few nervous chuckles tried to fill the void, but no one dared meet my eyes. My heart sank. I felt the heat rush to my face, an uncomfortable mix of anger, embarrassment, and disbelief. Laura looked startled for a second, but then her smile returned. That same playful, I meant it as a joke smile. I didn't say a word. I put the spatula down and walked toward the edge of the yard, letting the weight of the words settle in. I remembered all the subtle signs I'd ignored over the past months. The secrecy of texts, the prolonged phone calls when I was in the other room, the faint scent of cologne on her sweater that wasn't mine. I had brushed them off, telling myself it's nothing. Overthinking, paranoia, normal life. But that moment in front of everyone made the denial impossible. I stepped back into the sun, forcing a casual smile as if nothing had happened. But inside, I was reeling. It wasn't just the neighbor's answer. It was the way Laura laughed along with it. The ease with which she accepted that comment. That was the first time I realized that perhaps she didn't respect the boundaries I thought we had. That perhaps her playful jokes were a mask for something much darker. I wanted to confront her then and there, to demand an explanation. But something inside me held back. Some part of me knew that losing control in that moment would only give her more power. I needed clarity, not chaos. I excused myself quietly, telling Laura I needed a moment near the fence to check on the kids. My hands were trembling slightly as I leaned against the wood, replaying the words in my head. "I'll take him." Not a joke, not a playful tease. A statement that felt too real, too deliberate. My mind raced through months of little inconsistencies, moments I had pushed aside, missed texts, late-night outings, subtle changes in her tone when speaking about certain friends. They all made sense now, like puzzle pieces forming a picture I had refused to see. When I returned to the group, the laughter had resumed. But the air felt different, heavier. Conversations were clipped, smiles forced. I noticed the way some neighbors glanced at me, whispering just enough to know that they had caught the tension too. And Laura. She approached me, placing a hand lightly on my arm, trying to soften the moment with that smile I had once adored. "Relax," she said, whispering as if my face hadn't betrayed the storm inside. "It was just a joke. Don't overthink." I looked at her, really looked. The playful twinkle in her eye was still there, but it didn't match the words she had said, nor the way she laughed with Greg. Something had shifted. A chasm I could feel but couldn't yet name. "A joke?" I asked quietly, almost to myself, because it didn't feel like a joke to everyone else. She hesitated, then brushed it off, talking about the food, the heat, the children running around. I nodded, but my attention had already drifted. I realized I could no longer ignore the cracks that had been forming in our marriage. Every joke, every smile, every casual touch that I had previously dismissed now seemed like part of a hidden narrative. A story I was only beginning to uncover. Later that evening, as guests started leaving and the sun dipped behind the trees, I found a quiet corner and checked my phone. Multiple notifications from friends I hadn't spoken to in months. Some asking if everything was okay, others subtly implying what they had witnessed. My stomach sank. The laughter, the casual atmosphere, it had been a facade. The truth was exposed in the most public and humiliating way. I knew I couldn't let this pass. It wasn't about revenge, not yet. It was about facing reality, reclaiming my dignity, and deciding how I would navigate the betrayal that had been simmering under the surface for months. By the time the last neighbor drove away, I had made a decision. The night would end differently than any previous argument or silent treatment. I would confront this not with anger or pleading, but with clarity. I would let Laura know that some lines, once crossed, could never be ignored, especially when everyone else had already seen them. After everyone had left, the backyard was quiet, littered with empty cups, napkins, and the remnants of a laughter that now felt hollow. Laura moved to the porch, grabbing a glass of water, probably expecting me to approach her. I didn't. I stayed in the shadows, letting the silence settle like a weight between us. "Jason," she finally said, voice hesitant, testing the waters. I didn't mean anything by it. It was just a joke, I swear. I stepped into the light, letting my gaze meet hers. "A joke?" I echoed softly. "You think laughing about trading me to another man in front of our friends is a joke?" My voice was calm, almost too calm. But it carried the weight of every hour, every day, every moment I had ignored the signs. Her smile faltered, the playful mask slipping. She opened her mouth, searching for an excuse, but no words came. She realized, as I did, that this wasn't about humor anymore. This was about respect, trust, and the boundaries she had crossed, both in public and in the quiet moments I had believed were ours alone. I didn't think it would matter," she said finally, her voice low, almost ashamed. "I was just trying to be funny." I shook my head slowly. "It matters. It matters because it exposes everything I've felt, every doubt I've had. You made a choice today, and the truth is clear. You don't see me the way I thought you did." Her eyes widened, tears threatening to fall, but I stayed composed. The anger that had burned in me earlier was gone, replaced by a calm certainty. I had spent too long trying to rationalize her actions, to justify her behavior, to pretend the cracks weren't there. Not anymore. I turned toward the door. I'm done trying to explain myself, done trying to protect us from what's obvious. You made your joke, and now you can live with its consequences. I'm leaving tonight, Laura. She ran a hand down her face, desperate, but I didn't look back. I walked through the backyard one last time, past the laughter and chatter that had turned into whispers and sideways glances. I could hear her calling my name, pleading, begging silently through the space between us. But the words didn't reach me. I reached my car, slid in, and felt the first real sense of relief in months. Betrayal has a way of stealing your peace slowly, quietly, but reclaiming it, even through absence, feels like breathing for the first time in years. I started the engine, glanced in the rearview mirror at the house where I'd once felt safe, and drove away. Laura remained on the porch, framed in the warm glow of the porch light, a mixture of shock, shame, and disbelief on her face. The neighbors who had witnessed the moment would talk, whisper, speculate. But that was no longer my concern. Some lessons, some truths are learned only when you face the consequences yourself. And as the distance grew between us, I finally understood. Leaving wasn't the end of our story.